Hi, my name is Aco Tanasovsky. I'm a program manager with Microsoft covering transportation management in Dynamics AX. The presentation today is about the transportation management module in Dynamics AX 2012 R3. First, we will take a look on the module on a conceptual, high level, and then we will make a short demo of the outbound processes. We will cover the setup area, the transportation planning, rating and routing, freight reconciliation, and appointment scheduling for the load. Let's get started. This is an overview of the transportation management module in Dynamics AX. And first we will take a look of the processes from a conceptual point of view, and then we will make a short demo of the outbound process to show how the process flow is in real life. So the transportation processes are organized in the following manner as the process flow diagram shows. So first we have a setup area where the user or the transportation management will make all the setup necessary to start using the transportation module. This is where they would set up the carriers, the pricing structure, the costing structure, but also set up possible discounts and charges that are necessary for the rating process. So after the basic setup is done, the minimum setup necessary for using the TMS module, then we can start using the TMS. And the first part of the process is the load and transportation planning. This is basically where we need to define what is it that we need to transport, the origin point, the destination point, the goods we need to transport, and after that we can go to the rating and routing process where we find the most suitable rate and route for the shipment that we are planning transportation for. And when we are done with that, we make a confirmation to the carrier, and then the goods are shipped. Apart from these functionalities, we also have two other types of functionalities that complement the module, and that is freight reconciliation and appointment dock management. So to start off, the first scenario group, the transportation planning, this is basically the process that starts all the transportation scenarios. Here's where we need to define what is it that needs to be transported, make planning of the load, define origin and destination point, what goods need to be transported, and so on. And to do this, we need to have some kind of demand for transportation. And this demand comes either from the sales orders, the purchase orders, or the transfer orders. To make the transportation planning, we can do that either directly from one of these document orders, or we can go to a so-called load planning workbench where the transportation coordinator will make all the necessary planning. Some of the keywords to mention in this area there that we're capable of doing inbound and outbound transportation planning. We can do multi-shipment loads, we can consolidate shipments, we can split orders into several loads. We're able to define our own equipment and then monitor the capacity building as we put some more order lines into that load. So once we have done that, we have defined our load and we have defined the origin and the destination point, we can then continue to the rating and routing process. And this is a process where after we've defined the load or the shipment, we want to find a rate in the route for it. Basically, we want to find the most optimal rate that would be suitable for the load. So for that, we select the load that we want to rate and then go to a so-called rate route workbench. And in this rate route workbench, we have several possibilities to find the most corresponding freight rate, either to find the least expensive one, do rate shopping so that we can have multiple possibilities for freight rates, or we can base our rating on the logistics network that we have defined as part of our setup. The central concept in the rating and routing process are the rating engines. And the rating engines is basically where we are going to make a setup of the costing structure for finding the best rate. So the rating engines can be very simple motors for finding the best rate. for example, establishing a web link with one of the carriers where we then pass on some information about the cargo that we want to transport. But they can also be of a more complex nature, where we will set up a rating engine that has several sub-engines, where one of them would find the mileage necessary for the process, another one would apportion the weight or the volume, and then a third one would calculate the rate based on the findings from the other two engines. Apart from the rating engines, as I mentioned earlier, we could also set up our own routing guides. This means that we define our own logistics network and then set up the from and to points in how we have set them up based on the contracts that we have with the carriers. We are capable of doing a multi-segment and multimodal routes. We can make multi-stop routes. We can also define constraints for the routing, and of course we support all the modes of transport that are necessary. The user is also capable of defining all the necessary accessorial and fuel surcharges that will be added to the basic freight rate of the shipment. So the freight reconciliation scenario is where the user has the possibility to match the freight accruals defined at the point of shipping and with the freight invoice that is received from the carrier. We have possibility for automatic freight invoice matching, and that is where the user or the transportation manager sets up some thresholds for tolerance of the difference for the freight invoice, and this can be done either per whole invoice amount or per freight charge. Just to mention that this freight reconciliation process should not be confused with the accounts payables invoice reconciliation. This is of a pure operational nature, where the transportation coordinator matches the freight accruals together with the invoice lines received from the carrier. And this can be done either from the load planning workbench, where the user can select a certain load and then go to the invoice matching, or go to a freight reconciliation screen from where all the invoices can be matched. And as last but not least, we have the appointment scheduling module, and this is where we can set up our appointments for the warehouse docks that we have for pickup and delivery of goods. And we need to do this in order to avoid double booking on some of the docks, and also to get an overview of when the appointments are. An extra functionality is here that we can perform an appointment check-in and check-out, where we record the timestamp when the appointment started and when the appointment finished, which later can be used for some effectivity reports. And plus, when the appointment check-in has happened, we can also enter information about the driver, should that be necessary. And with that, we finished the overview on conceptual level of the transportation management module, and now we can go on to make a demo directly in AX. So here's how the transportation management looks like in AX. It follows the guidelines for user experience as for the other modules of AX. It has a setup area, it has periodic functionalities, and all the other forms are placed under its corresponding area. So I mentioned the setup area as part of the conceptual overview, and here is where the user would do all the setup necessary to start up the transportation management, but as well, once in a while they are expected to return here either to create a new carrier, or to update some of the routes, or to update some of the costing structure. So everything needs to be set up per carrier and then per service of the carrier. And here is also where we would define all the discounts and how we want to bill the customer for that. And here it's also we would define our own routing guides and our own logistics network. I mentioned also that the core concept of the rating are the rating engines, and these engines are set up also in the setup area. And as you can see, they can be of very simple but also of a very complex nature, calling out several other sub-engines. So to give an overview of the process flow, I will make a short demo of the outbound process of the transportation. And for that, we would first go to a sales order and create a sales order that we need to plan transportation for. So we create one sales order. We add one item to it. And then I can either start planning the transportation from here to go to the load planning workbench, or I can access the load planning workbench from transportation management, inquiries, and then load planning workbench. And this load planning workbench is the transportation coordinator's workplace. So here they would see all the demand necessary for transportation planning on the inbound side, placed under the purchase orders, on the outbound side under sales orders. If they need to plan for internal transfers based on transfer orders, and all of those will be placed here. And here is the sales order that I just defined. So I can either add this sales order to a new load, or I can also add it to some of the existing loads. So to add it to a new load, I would just select the sales order line that I just created and click Add to a new load. And here I need to define the so-called load template ID. The load template ID is basically giving an idea of the physical dimensions of the load that we are trying to define. And here I have several templates. I have a 20-foot container, a 40-foot container, or a 26-box truck. But for me, it's very easy to create a new load template, go to the table, and define the physical dimensions of it, and actually start using it right away. So once I select the template, then I can see how much left capacity I have into that load template. So I select that, and now the load is created. So if I had some other sales orders, it would be possible that I add few more sales orders to this load before I actually go to the rating process, and I would do that by selecting that sales order and then click Add to existing load. So now that I have defined this load, I can continue with the rating and routing process. For that, I select the load, I click on Rating and Routing, and this opens the Rating and Routing workbench. And here I can see that some of the characteristics for that load have been transferred to this rate route workbench. For example, the origin address, the destination address, plus some characteristics about the cargo that is in the load. The possibilities here for finding a rate are either to find the least expensive rate, find a rate that is based on our own defined network, or we can also do rate shopping, where we get several possibilities on which rate to choose from. So if I would like to always select the least expensive rate, I would just click on rate, and this would return me the rate that is least expensive for that carrier. But if I would like to do rate shopping and basically choose from several carriers that are offered, then I would click on rate shop, and now for these origin and destination points I have several possibilities. So here, based on what I have here, the parameters are basically the freight rate that is offered to me by carrier, but also the shipment date and the delivery date. So from these possibilities, I can choose which rate would be most optimal for the load that I'm planning, because it can be that the rate that is least expensive is not always most suitable. So now that I've found the rate that will be most suitable for my load, I can select that one and then assign it. And then this opens the route form, which gives me an informational overview of that route, where I can also review the segment information and other data that I've received back from the carrier. Going back to the load, now I'm ready to release it to the warehouse and give basically a message to the warehouse that now they are ready to start picking all the goods and start packing them and putting them on the truck that needs to transport the goods. So I do that by releasing to warehouse, and for this warehouse I have a setup that automatically executes all the warehousing processes, and I do that because I want to make quicker process flow only for the transportation processes. So now that I've done that, now the load is packed and loaded. The only thing we need to do is just send a confirmation to the carrier that this has been sent out. Here we also have possibility to print a packing slip, a bill of lading, or if the customer is enabled for sending an ASN, then we can send an ASN to the customer as well. The other possibilities that I mentioned is about an appointment scheduling. So if I want to schedule an appointment for one of these loads, I would just select one of these and then go to Transportation, Appointment Scheduling, and then this will open the appointment scheduling form. I can access this form also from the main menu. It's very simple here to create a new appointment, set up for which of the docks the appointment is about, and I have some references that this appointment is for that load and it's concerning these order numbers. Plus I have some date and time when the appointment would be. Now for this dock I have especially set up that in the setup area that the default time for loading or unloading for that particular dock is 2 hours, so that's why this is set up now automatically. And when I'm ready for with the details about the appointment, I confirm the appointment and now it's in the calendar. So when the time for the appointment comes, I can select that appointment and then go to the check-in and check-out area. So now when I check in the appointment, I have a possibility to register some data about the shipping carrier, the trailer, the tractor, but also about the driver name and the driver's license number if that was necessary. And then we have started the appointment. It is checked in, and when the time comes for checking out, I can just click on checkout, review the information that is sent, and then now the appointment is finished. And I can see that the appointment now is completed. So this was a brief overview of the transportation management module in Dynamics AX 2012 R3, and we hope that it will especially benefit the manufacturing and distribution companies because everything is user configurable, it's very flexible to use, and it simplifies the user adoption.